President Yoon Suk Yeol on Thursday held a policy briefing and press conference with local and foreign media, where he emphasized his core policy agenda, the so-called 4+1 reforms. Our correspondent Oh Soo-young was there and joins us in the studio today. Welcome, Soo-young.
It's great to be here, Yoojin.
Thank you for your time. So our first question for you, Soo-young, is the main focus was on the national pension, which all working Koreans receive upon retirement. So let's begin with that.
Sure, Yoojin. So President Yoon Suk Yeol, he pushed for a new plan to reform the public pension scheme ahead of the government's anticipated announcement in September. South Korea has the world's lowest birth rate and a declining population, and that means fewer young adults will have to support a disproportionately large number of pensioners. As experts predict, the current pension funds will run out by 2055. Those born after 1990 would not receive any payouts upon retiring at age 65.
The current structure allows people to receive more than they've paid over the years, causing a deficit. This puts a burden on future generations who have to cover the difference. When the pension system was first introduced, it was designed generously to encourage people to join. It was expected the premium rates would gradually increase and the income replacement rate would decrease over time. However, after the 1997 Asian financial crisis and even during the 2007 pension reform, there were proposals to increase the premium, but they weren't implemented.
There's long been talk of adjusting the current 8% premium and 40% income replacement rate, which is how much of your lifetime's income is expected to be covered by your pension payout. However, in addition to these so-called parametric measures, Yoon raised the need for structural reform. This includes introducing an automatic adjustment system that adjusts the premium and the income replacement rate according to the current economic and demographic conditions. He also mentioned setting different rates of increase in terms of how much the younger and older generations pay towards their pensions monthly to ensure generational equity, along with pension credits for those whose payments might be stalled due to maternity leave or military service. Now, these measures are likely to be included in the Health Ministry's plan, which is expected to be released in September, representing the country's first pension reform since 2007.
I see. So what exactly comes after the government's plan?
Well, the next step would require gaining parliamentary approval to revise the National Pension Act. So we can probably expect to see some partisan tug-of-war over the details. The ruling party is pushing for a special committee to work on the reform measures and would support both structural and parametric reforms, while the opposition majority would prefer to control the discussions themselves and put more focus on income security, thus calling for a higher income replacement rate than the ruling party. Experts have voiced concern that the conversation has already been too politicized, when people's future livelihoods shouldn't be a matter of partisan negotiation.
The truth is, no other country has experienced a birth rate as low as South Korea's. So we need to take more drastic and unprecedented measures to ensure sustainability, intergenerational equity, and old age income security. Otherwise, we'll see a divide between those who benefit and those who don't, and the system won't be sustainable.
Now, the pension reform is part of Yoon's 4+1 reform, so what exactly are they?
Sure, so that pertains to the national pension, medical reform, as well as education and labour relations, which are areas that require structural reform to root out fundamental inefficiencies, as well as malpractices that make Korean society in whole rather unproductive and unsustainable. On medical reform, the president renewed its pledge to fundamentally strengthen the healthcare system nationwide, especially in hospitals outside the capital area, by increasing the number of doctors and improving their compensation schemes. He also said the whole structure will be changed for tertiary hospitals, which have been overly dependent on resident doctors. So specialists and clinical support nurses would then play essential roles. On education, Yoon promised to deliver a public care system to ease the burden of looking after school children for working parents. On labour, he further pledged efforts to create a virtuous cycle of innovative growth for firms and a quality work environment for workers through labour market flexibility, as well as fair compensation that meets global standards. Now, the +1 element of this, of President Yoon's 4+1 reforms, that's raising the chronically low birth rate, and that cuts across most areas of his social reforms. In pushing through with these measures, Yoon admitted that they may not be as popular or easy to achieve, and that's actually why he's going to take the road not taken.
개혁은 필연적으로 저항을 불러옵니다. 개혁 과정은 험난한 여정이 될 것입니다. 정치적 유불리만 따진다면 하지 않는 것이 훨씬 편한 길입니다. 역대 정부가 개혁에 실패하고 개혁을 시도조차 하지 않았던 이유가 이 때문입니다. 우리 사회의 지속 가능한 발전에 반드시 필요한 구조 개혁이 지금까지 이루어지지 않은 이유가 바로 이것입니다. 저는 쉬운 길을 가지 않겠습니다.
Right, and during the press conference, there were a variety of questions, for example, on foreign policy and foreign relations, and you actually asked a question about the future of inter-Korean relations, right?
Right, yes, I did. And in both President Yoon's policy briefing and the press conference, the president highlighted his recently announced unification doctrine, which proposes the establishment of a dialogue channel between South and North Korea. He described how it's a peaceful doctrine aimed at extending freedom and rights to North Koreans, which of course is in line with South Korea's constitution.
정확히 2주 전에 발표하신 통일 독트린은 남북 간의 포괄적인 협력 분야들을 논의하기 위한 대화 채널을 제안합니다. 그러나 북한은 아직 반응이 없었고 담대한 구상에 대해서도 마찬가지입니다. 최근 러북 협력과 또 북한의 도발로 인한 그런 계속되는 긴장 상황 가운데서 앞으로 남북 간의 남북 관계를 어떻게 접근하실지 궁금합니다.
우리의 분단이 또 국제정치의 산물인 만큼 국제사회가 또 우리 주변 국가가 한반도의 이 통일이 모두에게 불리하지 않고 도움이 된다라고 하는 인식을 갖게끔 꾸준히 소통하고 연대 노력을 해야 된다는 그런 말씀이고, 어렵죠? 단방에 안 되죠. 통일 방안을 내놔라. 수십 년 동안 내놨지만 실천이 안 되죠. 그러나 꾸준히 노력을 하는 것입니다.
Well, that, I suppose, indicates that President Yoon will continue to seek a path to unification with North Korea, regardless of the regime's current lack of interest in dialogue, as he feels he has the constitutional duty to do so.
Well, that's quite a lot on his plate. Unfortunately, we need to wrap up here, but thank you so much for coming in today, Sooyoung.
My pleasure, Yoojin.